It's meatball day today because I'm going to be mixing up some terrific meatballs, smoking them up out on the Weber Kettle using one of my favorite woods. And I'm going to take those meatballs and build a delicious meatball caprese sub. There's just something about making meatballs that, I don't know, makes me feel good. You can use them in anything. Sandwiches like today, or pasta, in a lasagna, or just eating them by themselves. But these are gonna be great in these caprese meatball subs today. So what we're starting with is 2 pounds of an 85-15 ground beef. Now you could use 80-20, no problem. This was just kind of there and on sale and wanted just a little less fat today because I'm adding something else to this, which is gonna have more fat. And that's 1 pound of a hot Italian sausage. Now I want to mix this up a little bit before I add the rest of our ingredients. Now in this you could use, a sweet Italian sausage or any other flavor of Italian sausage you want. This is just an easy way to get those sort of Italian flavors into the meatballs. We're going to be adding other seasonings, but this is a really good start. All right, let's get the rest of our ingredients in here. First up, 1 teaspoon of granulated garlic, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of a coarsely ground black pepper, 2 teaspoons of dried basil, and 2 teaspoons of dried oregano. Next up, 2 eggs. Next up, a cup of breadcrumbs. Now you could actually start with less, but I've done this a number of times and I've found that this is a really good ratio of that egg and bread and meat mixture. And we're gonna mix. Now, if you have another recipe you like for meatballs, go ahead and use that. This is just mine, and these are great meatballs to make ahead and freeze. What I like to do when I do that is, you smoke up a bunch of meatballs, get some great flavor on them, and then you freeze them, and then if you're gonna use them in pasta or something, you just put them frozen into the pasta sauce and let them come up to temp that way. Let them fully thaw out and cook. All right, that is looking good. Let's form some meatballs. So I'm just doing these meatballs sort of by feel. I'm not gonna measure them out or anything. And once I get the first one done, you'll see about the size I want. I'm just gonna, make the rest that same size. So I've got about this much right here. If I was to guess, I'd say that's maybe a 1/4 pound. So about this size meatball here, just like that. And I'm just gonna keep making them. Are they all going to be exactly perfectly the same size? No. Could I make them all perfectly exactly the same size by weighing them and doing all that? Yeah, but I'm not going to. When you're making meatballs and you're just aiming for an approximate size with them, I'm a firm believer in what I like to call close enough. Here we go. Just about a 1/4 pound each. I got a little bit left over here. I'm going to look for the smallest one. I think it's the first one I did actually. We're just going to build him up a little bit. There we go, 12 meatballs. Let's go fire up the Weber Kettle and get these guys smoking. All right, the kettle is up to temp. We're shooting for somewhere between 300 and 350 today, and I'm not using any internal temperature probes. I'm just gonna go by time today and check it after 20 minutes. So let's get these meatballs on. And I mentioned that I'm using one of my favorite woods today, and that's olive wood. I happen to have a little bit left and it's gonna be perfect for this. And that vortex is only half full today. That's all I needed. So let's go ahead and get our lid on and get smoking. So as I mentioned, I'm not using any internal temperature probe and I'm not using any ambient temperature probe. I'm just going off the lid thermometer, which is about 75 to 100 degrees different than grate level temp. So I'll just manage the vents to keep it in that 350 range, which on the lid thermometer is going to read closer to 400 to 450. The ultimate internal temperature, which I'll be checking with the Thermapen, that we're going for is 165 internal because there is ground pork in this with that Italian sausage. But somewhere around 120 degrees internal, after 20 or 30 minutes, we'll see. I'm gonna glaze this with some marinara sauce. So I'll see you back here in 20 minutes when we check these meatballs. All right, we've been going 20 minutes. Let's check these meatballs. These are looking good. Let's go for a temp right here. That'll turn over. We're at 119, 120. It's time to glaze these. Let's get a quick little brush of some marinara on these so we can get our lid back on. Don't need much here. Let's get our lid on and let these go for, I don't know, another 15 minutes and we'll check them. All right, we've been going another 15 minutes. Let's check our temps. Let's see here. That is 164. That's close enough for me. It'll rise that other degree while it rests in the pan and we head inside to build these sandwiches. All right, so here are 8 of the meatballs that we made. I'm gonna be using these to make some sandwiches. The others I'm gonna freeze. As I mentioned, these are great to freeze. Throw them right in some sauce to thaw out and cook up. They're great, they bring that flavor to the sauce. So the reason I have these out separated is I'm gonna put cheese on here and put these in the oven for a few minutes at 400 degrees just to melt that cheese before I put it on the sandwich, because I don't wanna build the sandwich, put the cheese on and put the whole sandwich in there, because there are elements of the Caprese sandwich that I don't want subjected to the heat, like the basil and the Roma tomatoes. So we're gonna get the cheese nice and melty on these meatballs first, and then we're gonna put these on the sandwich. So let's get some mozzarella on here. Gonna put some pieces right on top of these. And really, if you wanted to, you could do this the more traditional way, which is build everything, put the cheese on, and shove the sandwich in there, maybe under the broiler with the top of the sandwich off, and just let it melt and get some color. But I really don't want to subject those other elements to the heat right now. So I'm going to put these in the oven for a few minutes and we'll move on to building our sandwich. So while the cheese is melting, I want to get something done quickly here. Traditional elements of Caprese are mozzarella cheese, basil, tomato, and many times balsamic vinegar. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some Italian bomba peppers and add some balsamic vinegar to this, mix it up, and that's gonna be almost a little bit of a spread. These are pretty spicy, so you don't have to do this, but I'm going to. Mix this up. And I don't know exactly how much of this I'll use, because like I said, it is spicy. If you wanted to, you could cut this a little bit with some mayo or something like that, but this is good for me. All right, so the meatballs are done with the cheese melted. Just took them out of the oven. They're gonna just sit there for a minute while we build this sandwich. So I have my toasted little bottom of this roll here, and I wanna first lay down some basil. Good coverage here. Next, I'm gonna put some Roma tomato slices. And then before we add our meatballs and other things, I'm gonna put some cracked black pepper on here because I really like that on tomatoes. Almost forgot, I wanna put some pepperoncinis on here. Not traditional to Caprese, but I love them. These are some sliced pepperoncini. Now it's meatball time. It's gonna be a fairly large meatball sandwich. Oh, can I get 4 on here? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe. We did. We got 4. Now I'm going to put a little bit of that balsamic bomba pepper mixture on each meatball. Bomba peppers are also, you'll see them as Calabrian chilies, which is actually the name. I've just seen them listed as that. And the package I have them in says marinated bomba peppers / Calabrian chilies. There we have it. Let's put a lid on it. I have no idea how I'm gonna eat this, but I'm gonna go for it because it's time to taste. So I think the way I'm going to attack this is I'm going to cut off a section that has one meatball in it, down here. And that's the way I'm going to get into this thing. A little slice of meatball came off. Let's take a quick taste of that first. I'm glad that little slice came off because that olive wood. I said this before when I smoked other meats with olive wood. If you get a chance to use it with beef especially, the flavor you get, it's such an earthy flavor. It is so good. And on these meatballs, that right there is fantastic. But let's dive into the whole sandwich and see what we got. That is so good. Oh man. Yes, I basically have to unhinge my jaw like a snake to get a bite, but oh, this is so worth it. And really, if you don't want a sandwich, this tall, just cut the meatballs in half and lay them flat on there. You have a much thinner sandwich, but I don't know. I wanted to go for it today. I love the Caprese influence on the sandwich, the basil, the tomato, the mozzarella. It works so well with a meatball because it really just kind of goes together, that whole Italian vibe with this, but without just sort of a really heavy marinara sauce on here, just that glaze of marinara when we were smoking them. And you throw in some pepperoncinis and those bomba peppers, Calabrian chilies, killer sandwich. So if you ever get a chance to smoke with olive wood, do it. And if you do, maybe smoke up some meatballs and make a meatball sandwich like this. If you don't want to do a caprese, add your own flavors because that olive wood turns this into an amazing sandwich.